Have you ever been in a situation where you were sure you were going to die? Maybe you're in a snowstorm and you're buckling from the hopelessness, but then suddenly someone else is there with you, and you feel their calming presence and their voice telling you to carry on. Well, you may have experienced the third man factor. Okay, you're trapped in a snowstorm, or a cave-in, or you're surrounded by hyenas. I don't know what your life is like. And then you feel like someone is there with you, and they're offering words of encouragement or guidance. They're convincing you to carry on. And then later, as your adrenaline bottoms out and you want to thank this person, everyone else says, "It was just you, bro. There was nobody else here." Now, since the release of The Third Man Factor, the book by John Geiger, people have been taking this phenomenon much more seriously, but they've come up with a lot of competing theories as to what may cause it. Is it stress? Is it just a psychological coping mechanism? Or something more spiritual? So the first documented instance of third man syndrome dates back to over 100 years ago with Sir Ernest Shackleton. He set out on a trans-Antarctic expedition in his ship, the Endurance. And it went bad. It went so bad. They got stuck in the ice for a long time. I think they were there for like 10 months. And then the ice crushed the ship. And so they said, okay, I guess it's not going to thaw. We should go. So they're running out of options. The entire crew is now on this tiny block of ice. So they have to get everyone into lifeboats. Shackleton and two other companions set off on an 800-mile Antarctic ocean journey in an open boat. Eventually they get to South Georgia Island. And it's a hellhole, but at least it's an island. But they still have to cross the entire island to get to a whaling station on the other side. That's 26 miles of glaciers and mountains. They're tired, they're hungry, they're cold. But after 36 hours of hell, they make it to the whaling station. Now, this grueling trip could have killed them, but in those 36 hours, they didn't give up because they all felt a fourth person there with them, just at the edge of their awareness, offering support and guidance. Now, this seems to happen a lot when people are trying to ascend Everest. One time in 1933, there was a British explorer named Frank Smith. Frank was trying to climb Everest without supplemental oxygen. He got pretty high up, and all of his team said, "We can't do this. We're going back. It's too hard." But Frank kept climbing. He said, "That's okay. Me and my friend Jimmy can do it." And he and Jimmy climbed up, and they got within like 1,000 feet of the summit. He didn't quite make it, but when he got to a certain point, he was like, "Oh, Jimmy, this has been rough. You want some cake?" And there was no Jimmy. There was never a Jimmy. Now, I know what you're saying. It's Jesus. I don't know why you're making it so hard. Or it's a guardian angel. Or it's Navi. Or it's Tyler Durden. I am Jack's oxygen-deprived brain. So case closed, right? Oxygen deprivation. These people were tired, exhausted, and at really high altitudes. Of course they started hallucinating. But what about all of those people who weren't climbing Everest when they saw the third man? So after a loved one has passed, do you ever feel like maybe they're still in the room? Like grandma's still sitting in her favorite chair right now? Many people who experience a felt presence are on high level of Parkinson's medication, indicating that the neurotransmitter dopamine might be at play here. But then there's this. So a long time ago, in high school, my friends were driving back from spring break. They were out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night. It was West Texas. And if you've ever driven across West Texas, you know that it goes on forever. There's nobody out there. So they're driving, middle of the night, and they hit a deer. Car spins out of control. They slam into a ditch. They're freaking out, crying. They're climbing out of the car. And then someone comes up to help them. He calms them down, reassures them that they're okay, and makes sure everybody is safe. After a few minutes, they're able to get the car started, pull it out of the ditch, and then when they go to thank the guy, he's not there. And they realize there are no lights around anywhere, no cars, nowhere he could have come from, and they can't remember what he looks like. The only thing they remembered was that he was wearing a pair of black Nike high tops. So did my friends have an experience with the third man? Who's to say? I'll say, yeah, they did. That's what happened. And then there's Ron DiFrancesco. He was working in the South Tower of the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001, when it was hit by the second plane. He was on the 84th floor, and he was trying to make it down the stairwell. And after a while, there was too much fire and too much smoke, so he laid down. But he recalled someone taking his hand and leading him to safety. When he looked around, there was no one there. Let's talk about brain damage. People with brain injuries who also have experienced a felt presence often have damage to their temporoparietal junction. In fact, electrical stimulation to this region can cause you to have a felt presence experience. But guess what? That dysregulation of the temporoparietal junction is the same theory that some neurologists have put forward to explain why we see the hatman. All right, I'm gonna say something stupid, but the video's almost over, so deal with it. Is the hatman just an evil version of thirdman factor? If you think about it, we don't hear any stories about thirdman syndrome leading people to their deaths. Why is that? Because they're all dead. One more story. My two younger brothers, when they were kids, were driving on a remote country road in an old truck, and they were going too fast. They couldn't handle the curve that came up in the road. The truck rolled a couple of times into a ditch. It was totaled, but my brothers were largely unharmed. They were hanging upside down in the cab, trying to gather their wits as they were surrounded by broken glass and warped metal. Then someone came to help them out of the truck. They remember the guy being very kind, calming them down, telling them it was going to be okay and that they were safe. Minutes later, emergency services showed up. They were checked out by the ambulance and everything. And then they wanted to go thank the guy that had helped them. The ambulance driver said, "We were the first ones here. There was no other person." And my brothers couldn't really remember what the guy looked like. The only thing they remembered was that he was wearing black Nike high tops. Oh, making these videos is way more work than I thought. But hey, if you liked this, you can join us on Patreon. It's patreon.com/The Strangerous. Check it out in the link below. We've got all sorts of perks for weird folks like you. We'll be back soon with more Strangerous stuff, so yeah, stay Strangerous. Stay Strangerous. I don't know. Yeah, cut that out.